Okay, guys, this is chapter 6 of Story of the World, Paraguay and the Triple Alliance. So that's your first one. And the second one is going to be the Dominion of Canada. So here we go. Paraguay and the Triple Alliance, part 1.
Two tries for freedom. Paraguay and the Triple Alliance. The Civil War had just ended in North America, but in South America, an equally bloody war was just about to begin. In 1865, Francisco Solano Lopez had just come to power in Paraguay. Paraguay was a little country in the center of South America, sandwiched between the much larger countries of Argentina and Brazil.
Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is to get out your map for chapter 6, which I'm pulling out of the back right now. And that's going to be a map that looks like this, okay? So if everybody could get out the map that looks like this. And what I would like you to do is let's label some of this stuff in Latin America, okay? So we all know the big one there is Brazil, okay? So you guys know the big one there, and you guys are pretty good with South America because of Bolivia being there. So you've got the big one of Brazil. Paraguay is that little country underneath Brazil that borders Bolivia. So you girls know where that is because you're used to that. So you've got Bolivia here, and you've got Paraguay right here, okay? And then you've got Argentina right here. So I want you to get Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil on your map, if you could. Get those 3 countries on your map. And then question 1, between what 2 countries did Paraguay lie? It is sandwiched between Argentina and Brazil.
Lopez had inherited his power from his father, Carlos Antonio Lopez. Carlos Antonio had worked hard to make Paraguay a strong country. He had built up the army and prepared his oldest son, Francisco Solano, to inherit his power. But he spoiled Francisco, treating him like a hero when he was still a teenager, and even making him a general when he was only 18 years old. In 1853, when Francisco was 27, his father sent him to France to buy weapons for Paraguay's army. Francisco looked around him at the sprawling French Empire and thought, "This is the kind of empire I, too, would like to
Question
rule."
2, the French.
Carlos Antonio
France.
Lopez warned his son, "We have a strong army now, but when you become ruler, try not to fight. Instead, try to negotiate with the countries around you. Be diplomatic." But when his father died in 1862, Francisco Solano Lopez set out to make Paraguay one of the most influential countries in Latin America, even if that meant taking on the armies of Argentina and Brazil. Lopez had a difficult task. He had to fight not only with Argentina and Brazil, but also with those who disagreed with him within his own country. Like most of the countries of Latin America, Paraguay was populated by
This is in the outline. Look at your outline.
Descendants of slaves, native South American Indians, and Creoles.
Okay, so those are the 3 groups in Paraguay. That's in your outline on the bottom, point 1. Descendants of slaves, native South American Indians, and Creoles. And now it's going to tell you about the Creoles, which is going to answer question 3. Creoles are Spanish colonists who were born not in Spain, but in South America. Okay? So you're going to hear that, what a Creole is.
Creoles were Spanish colonists who had been born in South America rather than in Spain. 50 years before Lopez came to power in Paraguay, the Creoles of South America had helped lead their colonies to independence, freeing them from Spanish and Portuguese rule. By 1830, the Spanish and Portuguese colonies had become independent countries. Brazil, in the center, was one of the largest. Argentina stretched down almost to the tip of the continent. To the west lay Chile and Peru, and to the north a handful of smaller states. Once the colonies had become countries, the Creoles took power. The other people of Latin America, the native South Americans and descendants of African slaves who had been brought to South America by the Europeans, were poor and often badly treated. They resented their Creole overlords. Among themselves, the Creoles fought with each become dictators of their own countries, and the South American countries fought with each other as well. As a matter of fact, the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Garibaldi had helped the little country of Uruguay, sandwiched between Brazil and Argentina, to fight against an Argentinian dictator who wanted to control it.
Okay, so did those three different groups get along? No. Okay, the Indians and the descendants of slaves resented the Creoles, and the Creoles fought with each other. So the answer is just a quick no. They didn't get along.
Only 2 years after Francisco Solano Lopez came to power in Paraguay, Uruguay was once again the center of trouble. Two politicians were vying for control of Uruguay. Brazil wanted one of the politicians, a soldier named General Flores, to win the struggle, because he would then become an ally and friend of Brazil. So the Brazilian army helped Flores gain power in Uruguay.
Okay, so what country became a center of trouble? Uruguay. Let's label that on your map, okay? So label Uruguay on your map, which is underneath Paraguay. So you've got Paraguay here and then Uruguay. So label that on your map. And that became the center of trouble. And why did Brazil help General Flores get control of Uruguay? General Flores was a friend and ally of Brazil.
At this, Lopez grew indignant. Like Uruguay, Paraguay was sandwiched between the larger countries of Brazil and Argentina. Lopez didn't want Brazil to decide the fate of the smaller countries of South America. He asked Argentina to join with him in a fight against Brazil. When Argentina refused, Lopez turned to his army. In 1865, he marched 50,000 soldiers down the Paraguay River into Argentina.
Okay, so why did Brazil's actions make Lopez angry? He did not want Brazil to have a say in the affairs of the smaller countries. He wanted Brazil out of it. And why did Lopez then decide to invade Argentina? Argentina refused to help him fight against Brazil. Okay, so that's actually going to happen here. Let's listen to that.
War had begun. Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, now under the control of General Flores, who owed both his power and his loyalty to Brazil, united against Paraguay. This war became known as the War of the Triple Alliance. Lopez
Okay, so why did Lopez then decide to invade Argentina? Argentina refused to help him fight against Brazil, and this war became known as the Triple Alliance, which fought against Lopez in Paraguay. So the countries in the Triple Alliance were Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. So the steps leading to the invasion of Argentina, that's number 2 in your outline. Brazilian interference in the affairs of Uruguay, Lopez's request for Argentina to join the fight against Brazil, and Argentina's refusal. Those are the 3. Brazilian interference in the affairs of Uruguay, Lopez's request for Argentina to join the fight against Brazil, and Argentina's refusal. And now we're going to go on to the 2 sides in the War of the Triple Alliance.
By the 3 hostile armies, intended to get control of the rivers that led into Argentina and Brazil so that he could sail down and attack these countries. So he began to plan a sea battle to take control of an important river port held by Brazil. This was a bold move. Brazil had 33 steamships and 12 sailing ships. Lopez had only 2 gunboats and 15 other small boats. But he knew that Brazil's navy had been designed to sail on the ocean off Brazil's coast, not on the river. The steamships ran on propellers and needed deep water. Lopez hoped to surprise Brazil's army at low tide when the water would be shallow and the huge Brazilian fleet would be less able to maneuver. He collected his little fleet together, along with 6 barges loaded with cannon that he planned to tow into the battle. At 9 o'clock on the morning of June 11th, 1865, the Paraguayan Navy attacked. The little Paraguayan ships zipped in and out of the narrow river channels, avoiding the guns of the larger, slower Brazilian ships. But as the battle wore on, the Brazilian cannon began to find their mark. A Paraguayan ship sank into the river mud. Cannonballs smashed the boilers of one of the steamships. Another boat was rammed by an ironclad Brazilian ship. 4 hours after it began, the battle ended. The Paraguayan fleet had been all but
Brazil
destroyed.
won. Brazil
the
won.
commander of the Paraguayan fleet had been wounded and died a few days later. Brazil blocked up the rivers that led into Paraguay. Now Lopez could not get out of his country by water. He was landlocked. In the next year of fighting...
Okay, so just really quickly, the two sides in the War of the Triple Alliance were Paraguay, that's A, on one side, and on the other side were Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. Okay? Here we go.
Francisco Solano Lopez lost almost 20,000 of his men.
This is number 4 in the outline.
Called cholera.
Cholera.
Was spreading among them, killing more. He was starting to run out of guns, food,
food, and medicine.
And the Triple Alliance was better armed.
Triple Alliance better armed.
Lopez's army only had old-fashioned flintlock muskets, which didn't always fire. But the Triple Alliance army was using the new Enfield rifles, just like the British army in India. Soon Lopez had been pushed back into his own country. Then the Triple Alliance invaded. Now Lopez was fighting to defend his own land. His army made a stand at Humaitá, a fortress on the southern tip of Paraguay. For 3 years, the Paraguayan army resisted the besieging Triple Alliance. But in 1868, they were finally forced to surrender the fortress. They retreated back north towards the capital city of Asunción. The Brazilian and Argentinian forces marched into Paraguay. Asunción fell to the Triple Alliance in 1869.
Okay, so how many years did the Paraguayan army resist the invasion of the Triple Alliance? 3 years. What city fell to the Triple Alliance in 1869? Asunción, which is spelled Asunción with a little line over the O. And that's the capital, Paraguay, and it fell. That was in 1869. And if you didn't catch it, the 3 difficulties the Paraguayan army had were cholera, lack of guns, food, and medicine. That's the second one. And the third one was their old-fashioned weapons, or their lack of the same or good weapons.
Still, Lopez refused to give up. He collected a new army and went on fighting. Many people thought that he had now grown insane. He suspected his officers, his army, and even his family of treason. He ordered thousands of Paraguayans arrested and put to death, including many of his bravest officers, his own sister's husbands, and even both of his brothers. A year later, on March 1st, 1870, Lopez led the ragged remnants of his army out to face a Brazilian attack in Cerro Corá, far up in the north of his country. He was killed in the attack. Finally, the war was over. Brazil and Argentina each took a piece of Paraguay's land. Brazilian soldiers occupied the rest of Paraguay. Hundreds of thousands of men had died. Brazil alone had lost 100,000 soldiers, with another 65,000 injured. Half of the population of Paraguay had died, killed in battle, executed by Lopez, or wiped out by hunger and disease. Farmland had been destroyed as the armies had stormed through Paraguay. Starvation loomed. Paraguay, once strong, had become powerless. Even today, Paraguayans disagree about Lopez. Was he a patriot, fighting for the freedom of his country against the schemes of Argentina and Brazil? Or was he an insane dictator, as one of his own officers called him, a monster without parallel?
Okay, so the last few questions, they thought Lopez went mad because, he was killing everybody. He suspected everybody of treason, etc. Even had his brothers and his sister's husbands executed. After he was killed, Brazil and Argentina each took a piece, and Brazil occupied the rest. And then what two... Brazilian soldiers actually occupied the rest of Paraguay is what it should say. And then what 2 different ways do the people of Paraguay remember Lopez? Some say he was a patriot. Some say he was crazy. And the effect of the war on Paraguay, which runs in your outline, is half the population dead, farmland destroyed, and starvation loomed. And on your map, it says you should shade the 3 countries who came together under General Flores to make up the Triple Alliance on your map. And so that would be Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. So shade those 3 in. Those are the Triple Alliance. And that is the end of part 1. Good job.